You have to barrel through. You have to play the moment. You can't say, oh, they're going to laugh here, because that's not always the case.
Something monumental occurred during a live recording of the Carol Burnett show. The tough decision to fire Harvey Korman was taken by Carol Burnett, a leader recognized for her firm leadership. The show's dynamic shifted dramatically, and many were taken aback by this choice. How did this daring choice affect the program, and what was the reasoning behind it? In your opinion, what was the true motivation behind Burnett's extreme measure? San Antonio, Texas is the site of Carol Burnett's birth on April 26, 1933. The hardships she endured as a kid molded her resiliency and sense of humor. The tumultuous home life that Carol grew up in was a direct result of her parents' alcoholism, Joseph and Ina Louise Burnett. Joseph was her father's boss at the movie theater, and Ina Louise was her mother's dream writer. Unfortunately, they were unable to provide Carol the loving home she needed when she was a youngster due to their struggles with alcoholism. In an effort to make it big in the entertainment world, Carol's mother relocated to Hollywood after her parents divorced when she was a little kid. Chrissy, Carol's younger half-sister, and their grandmother Mabel White remained in Texas. With much love and devotion, Carol addressed her grandma Mabel as Nanny. Mabel had a pivotal role in Carol's childhood. Even though they were poor, Mabel gave Carol affection and stability that she hadn't always had from her parents. The family finally settled into a less-than-glamorous one-room apartment in a dilapidated Hollywood neighborhood. Those aspiring to be actors, writers, or otherwise involved in the film business shared a boarding home with them. Even though things were harsh, Carol's grandma did everything she could to protect her. Carol learned the importance of hard work and persistence from Mabel, who was both rigorous and kind. She was also supportive of Carol's developing passion for the stage. Carol often brought up the fact that she and her grandmother depended on welfare checks and sometimes had to pawn possessions to make ends meet. Despite the fact that their financial condition was tight, the obstacles were persistent. Carol overcame all of these obstacles to become an academic superstar, especially in the areas of writing and performing. Carol attended Hollywood High School as a teenager, where she persisted in her pursuit of the performing arts. This is where she first realized how much she enjoyed making other people laugh. Her skills shone through as her bashful personality blossomed on stage, surprising everyone around her. During her early years, Carol Burnett had a difficult childhood characterized by her parents' absence and difficulties. It helped her become more self-reliant, resilient, and to see the value of comedy in times of stress. Carol Burnett's resilience and the teachings she inherited from her grandmother helped her overcome the challenges she faced as a youngster. The comedic debut of Carol Burnett. Although it wasn't her original intention, Carol Burnett started her career into acting and comedy when she was a teenager. Carol came to terms with her passion for performing while still in high school, albeit it was more of a slow dawn than a bang. She was inspired to follow in her mother's footsteps and become a writer, which was her first career goal. But once Carol started acting in school plays, she couldn't help but feel a growing attraction to the stage. An inspirational instructor at Hollywood High School was a defining milestone in Carol's formative years. This educator saw Carol's acting potential and encouraged her to take the craft more seriously. Even though Carol was naturally reserved, she found strength and self-assurance when she was on stage and could make people laugh. This support allowed her to envision a future in show business, which had before seemed like an impossible ambition. Carol got her bachelor's degree in 1951 from Los Angeles High School and went on to study journalism at UCLA. Nevertheless, after rekindling her enthusiasm for performance in an acting class, she quickly changed her major to theater arts. This was a watershed moment since it launched her into her dream of becoming a famous actress. Carol acted in several UCLA shows, honing her craft, but she remained clueless about breaking into the profession after graduation. Carol had a huge challenge, a lack of funds, despite her blossoming passion in performing. The prospect of a future in acting was remote, and she and her grandma were struggling to make ends meet. What kept Carol going, however, was her dogged will. She had the opportunity to play at a party hosted by a famous benefactor when she was a student at UCLA. The donor was so impressed by her achievement that they offered to cover her UCLA tuition for the remainder of her degree, on the condition that Carol would use her accomplishment to aid those less fortunate. Carol was able to put her whole attention on her schoolwork and performances because of this kind offer. Carol realized she had to go to the entertainment capital of the world, New York City, after graduating from UCLA in 1954 if she wanted to follow her passion. It was a daring move, but she went to New York with little money and no industry ties. Carol had a rough start to her acting career in New York City, dealing with the usual obstacles such as money problems and the difficulty of standing out in a very competitive industry. Carol had odd jobs like checking hats to make ends meet while living in a women's boarding home in New York. She tried out for a number of parts, but she was frequently turned down, and prospects were few. Despite these first setbacks, Carol persisted. Nightclubs and little theatrical plays weren't the only places she kept performing. Her career on a steady upward spiral until 1955, when she landed a role in a revue named The Rehearsal Club Revue. Carol's breakout role as a comedian occurred in 1955, when she was cast on The Paul Winchell Show and had her television comic chops put on full display. Producers took notice of her on-stage presence and put her in the 1959 Broadway musical Once Upon a Mattress not long after. She began her meteoric climb to stardom with this performance, which garnered her critical praise and a Tony Award nomination. The Carol Burnett Show was an instant hit upon its 1967 CBS premiere and has been a TV classic ever since. Even though Carol Burnett was well known for her comic abilities, she found even more success with this variety program. The program was an instant hit, and Carol was further cemented as one of television's all-time great comedians over its 11 seasons run until 1978. One of the things that set the Carol Burnett Show apart was its unconventional format. It was a variety program. Thus, there were musical performances, skits, and special guests. Carol would start each program by fielding questions from the viewers, a great opportunity for her to build a personal and engaging connection with them. The show's tone was warm and inviting from the start thanks to this connection. The program's comedic sketches were its meat and potatoes. Carol and her troupe delighted viewers with a cast of unique personalities and a string of amusing antics. Some of the skits were parodies of well-known films and TV series, while others featured unique, eccentric characters who quickly gained a devoted following. The most well-known skit was The Family, in which Carol appeared as the intrepid housewife Eunice, who endured the antics of her quirky relatives. The Gone with the Wind spoof was another legendary joke. In it, Carol donned a curtain rod attire to mock the film. The event also included many musical performances. Carol would join the rest of the group in singing and dancing to musical numbers, which often included spectacular choreography and extravagant costumes. The musical numbers highlighted the actors' range and provided a welcome change of pace to the program. The musical pieces never failed to delight the audience, whether they were humorous or more serious in nature. One further thing that made her program stand out was the guest appearances. Carol sent an invitation to several famous people, including actors, comedians, singers, and dancers, to attend and join the celebration. Guests like these would liven up the presentation by taking part in skits or performing with Carol. Famous people of the period who appeared on the program enjoyed themselves immensely, since it provided them with a carefree platform to showcase their comic talents. What does Harvey Korman do? The Carol Burnett Show might not have been as successful without Harvey Korman's contributions. Korman joined the cast from the beginning and rose to prominence as one of the show's most pivotal characters. He was vital to the program because he provided the ideal comic counterpoint to Carol's wilder personalities. Harvey Korman was an integral component of the program due to his versatility and comic timing. His performances were flawless, and he had a talent for convincingly portraying characters who were both haughty and absurd. He portrayed an anxious patient opposite Tim Conway's inept dentist in The Dentist skit, which was one of his most memorable parts. Because Korman notoriously had trouble keeping a straight face while Conway was acting out the situation, which made it more funny, the comedy became classic. It was impossible to ignore the obvious connection between Harvey Korman and Carol Burnett. Their sequences together were among the show's most memorable because of how skillfully they played off of one another. Their exchanges were consistently funny, whether they were portraying an arguing couple, co-workers, or any other kind of character. One of the show's high points was Korman's ability to match Carol's intensity while adding his own flair. Vicki Lawrence and Tim Conway were among the other cast members with whom Harvey Korman had fantastic comic chemistry. The cast's natural chemistry and ability to work together brought an infectious feeling of friendship to the show. Particularly memorable was the on-screen dynamic between Korman and Conway, in which the latter's ad-libs and the former's efforts to suppress laughing went down in Hollywood history. Their chemistry and talent for making each other and the viewers laugh brought an exciting, unexpected dimension that audiences loved. Conflicts occurring off-camera. Even while The Carol Burnett Show did quite well in theaters, production was not without its share of hiccups. Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman, two major characters on the program, began to tense up with time. Their divergent comic methods and creative philosophies sometimes clashed, leading to friction and conflict. Even though they came at humor from different directions, Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman were both quite gifted. Keeping things light and entertaining was Carol's goal, and she was famous for her improvisatory talents and quick thinking. She encouraged her actors to be bold and attempt new things on stage, since she was always game for experimentation. They would sometimes shock one another on set, which would cause real hilarity and an air of unpredictability, and it helped produce some of the most memorable moments of the program. In contrast, Harvey Korman's approach to humor was more conventional and methodical. Being a perfectionist, he enjoyed spending a lot of time practicing before shows. When Korman worked on a project, he would often want to make sure that every little element was perfect. He was a fantastic performer because of his devotion, but he sometimes struggled with the show's impromptu, anything-goes vibe. Tension between Carol and Harvey arose naturally as the program progressed due to their divergent comedic approaches. There was a substantial increase in friction due to these variances. On occasion, Korman's attitude and irritability impacted the whole environment on set. When things didn't work out the way he had hoped, his sensitivity and impatience were known to manifest. Because of this, there were times when his emotional state impacted the ensemble dynamic as well as his own performance. Producing a weekly program under such intense strain probably exacerbated these problems. The relative authority to make decisions on the show's artistic direction was one of the key points of contention. As the show's headliner and main creative force, Carol knew exactly what she wanted. Korman, who is very opinionated and meticulous, would sometimes argue with her decisions. As a result of their divergent creative visions for the program, tensions may arise. Their divergent views on how to accomplish their shared objective of creating the greatest entertainment possible sometimes led to tension between them. The rift between Burnett and Korman widened over time. The cast and crew had a hard time keeping up the joyful, lighthearted vibe that was crucial to the show's success, since Korman's attitude would sometimes affect his work. This became more and more difficult for Carol to handle, as she valued a supportive and cooperative workplace. Regardless of these problems that occurred off-screen, Carol and Harvey maintained their professionalism throughout the show, and their camaraderie as comedians was evident. Nevertheless, the increasing stress ultimately became too much: the departure of Korman. After appearing on the program for 10 years, Korman chose to depart in 1977. Since he had been instrumental in the show's success, his departure was a watershed event. Even though Korman said he wanted to seek other chances, his choice was probably influenced by the underlying tension he had with Carol. Carol carried on with the program for another season after Korman's departure, but viewers still missed him. The relationship had altered between them and the rest of the ensemble, who were still amusing and skilled, but their cooperation had been the show's selling point. Even though Carol and Korman would eventually make up and even collaborate again, the show's 1978 finale served as a cautionary tale about the difficulties that may develop in even the most fruitful creative partnerships. The shooting and repercussions of Korman. The departure of Korman was a watershed moment for Carol Burnett's show. Many were taken aback by the decision, which put their relationship to the test. Regardless of the chaos, Burnett's professionalism kept the program successful. The firing of Korman sent shockwaves through the whole staff and cast. Korman was a mainstay on the program, appearing in several iconic sketches and renowned for his superb comic timing. Immediately upon his departure, many wondered how the program would go on without a major cast member. The remaining members of the cast faced a double whammy. Initially, they needed to get used to Korman's absence, both in-show and off-screen. The popularity of the program was greatly contributed by his rapport with Carol Burnett and the rest of the group, including Tim Conway and Vicki Lawrence. Many wondered how the program could continue to provide the same high-quality content and hilarious antics without him. Additionally, the actors had to deal with the emotional fallout of a friend and colleague's death. Korman was still someone they had worked closely with for a long time, even if there had been friction before he left. Everyone on set had to get used to the altered dynamic after his departure, and his absence was profound. Even if these obstacles were there, the concert went on. The surviving cast members, spearheaded by Carol Burnett, were hell-bent on preserving the show's essence. To make up for Korman's departure, they diversified their positions and reacted accordingly. Even though he had often portrayed Korman's comic foil, Tim Conway now had a more important part to perform. He made the changeover easier by bringing new comedy to the program and improvising on the spot. The show's writers also had to make some changes. Without Korman's input, they had to figure out how to compose skits and craft material that would appeal to viewers. The program recovered from the changeover, which was far from smooth. Keeping the show's quality up despite such a major shift required the cast and crew to be very adaptable. Korman's comeback and peacemaking. Although the first separation was unpleasant, Harvey Korman and the Carol Burnett Show continued to work together after Korman's ultimate return. Korman and Burnett both started to think about what had transpired after a while had gone. Specifically, Korman began to comprehend the rationale for his dismissal. He felt bad about how he had brought an unprofessional attitude on the set. After some soul-searching, he decided to make peace with Burnett. After working together and been friends for so long, Carol Burnett was willing to make amends. She valued Korman's admission of fault and could relate to the stresses of a high-stakes creative setting. After they had a productive conversation, their relationship improved, and Korman was asked back to the program. The program reached a watershed point with Korman's comeback. It was a metaphor for a personal as well as a professional reunion. A marked shift in Korman's demeanor occurred upon his return. Everyone on set appreciated how he became more laid back and helpful. A fresh feeling of solidarity emerged in its place, dispelling the previous tension. Audiences were thrilled to see Korman return, which gave the play a lift. The influence on Korman's career was long-lasting due to the reconciliation. He has said that the experience reinforced his belief in the significance of professionalism and collaboration in the entertainment sector. His personal and professional development were both aided by that humiliating experience. The tragedy and its aftermath brought attention to the difficulties of running a popular TV program for a long time. It also highlighted the value of talking things out, taking stock, and being able to pick yourself up after a setback. Harvey Korman's readiness to learn from his errors and Carol Burnett's strong leadership enabled them to mend their professional relationship, allowing them to keep making the hilarious humor that fans adored. During her tenure on The Carol Burnett Show, Burnett always shown her dedication to professionalism. She has great leadership abilities in addition to her comic talents. While she fostered an atmosphere that encouraged innovation, she made it plain that professionalism and respect were paramount. Although it was tough, Burnett put the team's happiness and the show's quality ahead of her personal connections when she fired Korman, and that choice paid off in the end. She was responsible for keeping the production environment upbeat and inspiring. This choice ensured that the program could go on with its high standards and evolution, notwithstanding the departure of a crucial cast member. Many comedians may trace their careers back to The Carol Burnett Show, which was beloved by viewers for its distinctive combination of comedy, music, and special guests. It revolutionized variety programs and continues to influence the comedy industry today. The show's continued renown as a treasured piece of television history is due in large part to Carol Burnett's choices, particularly the tough one of firing Harvey Korman. The decision to terminate Harvey Korman by Carol Burnett was a significant turning point for The Carol Burnett Show. Their long-term relationship was put to the test by this shocking decision. But Burnett's professionalism kept the show running well even while everything was going through a rough patch. The events that followed and the way they were handled may take you by surprise. Press the like button and subscribe if you're interested in hearing more about these monumental events in television history. In the next pieces, we will uncover the true drama unfolding behind the scenes.